Hello and welcome back to yet another travel video. My name is Alicia and on this channel I talk all things luxury, life and fashion, so if you're interested, please stick around. On the 12th of January 2024, Bubs and myself, along with 7 of our friends, boarded Royal Caribbeans Ovation of the Seas for a 9-day adventure to the Great Barrier Reef. Here's the second half of that journey. Just like part 1, my trusty phone, because no, not even gonna explain that. But basically day 6 started at 6:30 a.m. in the morning. We learned from the previous day that we didn't want to do tender ticket distributions. We just wanted to get on the early bird and not have to essentially wait in line. So we get up nice and early and we are waiting at 6:30 a.m. for the tenders already. We do manage to get on the first tender and we leave at 7:15 in the morning. Now we make it to the mainland at 20 to 8 and by 7:45 we are back in the car that we rented. We then make the half-hour drive to Palm Cove Jetty, which when we got there, a lot of people were actually using it for fishing. So there were a lot of kids and just like families kind of out for a fun day, just fishing on the jetty. It didn't smell the best, I will admit. Now, that particular car park was kind of the first site of damage from the cyclone because a decent chunk of the car park was closed because it had completely fallen in. Like it had been swept away with Cyclone Jasper and that part of the car park is probably floating in the middle of the ocean somewhere. So that is our first glimpse of the damage that the cyclone has caused. We're done at Palm Cove Jetty and we decide we're going to head to a second destination. Now Bubs picks out another cute little beach called Trinity. Normally, when the roads aren't cut off, the journey to Trinity is not actually that long. It uses the main artery. Now, unfortunately, that main artery has been taken out by Cyclone Jasper. It is closed both ways and every single lane is closed and that is the main artery. It is essentially, imagine if you lived in like Sydney. I don't know how many of you guys are from Sydney, but like if you lived in Sydney and like we kind of just cut off like Victoria Road or we just cut off Parramatta Road completely. This is the equivalent, but you're talking about some areas that do not have alternative routes. Sydney's so built up. Cairns is still in a little bit of a like very natural state kind of period. But then, so our GPS reroutes us and we end up taking these like mountain roads. And I've always loved like driving mountain roads. They're like windy, they're very like scenic, there's a lot of trees, like it's just nice sometimes. I really don't think the truck drivers felt the same way because they also had to find alternative routes. And now you've got people who are in the biggest trucks driving down some of the windiest and narrowest roads. And you've got truck drivers that would normally haul a double carriage hauling only a single carriage because God forbid they try to turn those corners in a double carriage. You're talking about a natural disaster that is obviously no one's fault. It is nature. But the implications and the consequences and the changes to their life are so drastic, and being there gives you the opportunity to kind of reflect on it. And I think it's one of those things that a lot of Sydney-siders will never see because we don't get cyclones down in Sydney. I've never even really, I haven't seen a cyclone. I've definitely seen like news articles and stuff talking about how, you know, we get cyclonic winds and stuff, but we've never had a true cyclone in Sydney, obviously. And so seeing the damage was kind of a really big eye-opener that, you know, in a time where we were traveling and we were enjoying and living it up, that people were trying to rebuild a life that was destroyed through no fault of their own. 9 a.m. we finally get to Trinity Beach. Now Trinity Beach looked really nice, but the part that was left out was the absolute trek of a bushwalk to get there. Now in my head I had envisioned like a nice day on the beach and stuff, so I wore Orans. I feel like we should all know what Orans look like at this point. They're one of the most recognizable shoes, but if you don't know what Orans are, let me put it this way. They're not made for bushwalking. They're made for the beach. So I spent all day in a pair of shoes not made for bushwalking, and it did really put a damper on my mood. I'm not even gonna lie about that. I was grumpy the entire bushwalk, but the final destination was definitely worth it. It was very nice, very calm, and kind of like a Windows like desktop. Like it could have been a Windows wallpaper. Like it did look very, very nice, and it was very peaceful, and it's very secluded. There's no vehicle access to it because obviously if there was, I would have gotten it. So we finish up there, and then we look at the time and we're like, we should probably start heading back into town. We have to return the car pretty close to where we picked it up, and that means that we need to drive from Trinity Beach back into the CBD, and then from the CBD we still have to get a bus to the port, and then from the port we get the tender onto the boat. Now the last tender leaves the port at 4:30 p.m. and I have way too much anxiety and stress in my life to cut it that fine. So I was like, I'm not taking the last tender. Like, we're pushing it absolutely 3 o'clock. Like 3 o'clock I want to be on that tender because I'm just paranoid like that. Like, I'm not getting stranded. Yeah, I'm just not getting stranded, like, full stop. 10:15, we decide to have a quick stop at the Botanic Gardens. So Cairns has a Botanic Gardens. It was complimentary entry, and we initially went in there kind of with the intention of like finding a cafe. They did have one in there, but we opted out of that. We decided not to eat or get anything from there, but we still did have a walk around the gardens. And I will say they had a huge range of plants. Like, there's things from literally all over the world, and that kind of to some degree was like a little bit of a surprise to me because they all grow in different climates. They're all stuck inside like one place in Cairns, and it was very nice to see. So there was a lot of like, they definitely had like a huge range of Australian flowers and trees and everything, but my favorite one was probably the orchids. So we stayed for a little bit, and then we ended up continuing back into town. We get into town, and then we decide it's time for lunch. So we find yet another fish, like seafood fish market kind of thing. And I will say that is one thing that I'm so grateful for in Sydney, is that there's so many places you can get like raw seafood, because I eat so much sashimi, but it's just not like that in Cairns. Everything comes like pre-packed, like nothing's shucked on site when it comes to oysters. And I did want sashimi, but the color of the salmon looked really questionable, and I did not feel like getting food poisoning, because honestly, if you're on a cruise and you're going to get food poisoning, it should come from the boat, not the mainland. So I opted out of the sashimi. So we picked up a dozen oysters, and we picked up a pretty decent sized basket of fish and chips, and then we kind of just ate that outside in like 35-degree heat. Following lunch, we drive around Cairns for a little bit, and then for some reason I decided to go to DFO. Now, we have DFO in Sydney, and it's very different because the DFO in Cairns has a Coles in it. Like, I'm pretty sure their DFO is quite frankly just like a shopping center that's just like called a DFO. But I did pick up a really, really cute pair of shorts from Polo Ralph Lauren. They are from the girls collection, and they're really cute. I have ditched the little belt situation because I'm used to it now. They make that with a lot of girls clothing. Thank God it's removable, but if I do use a belt, I'll probably use another belt that I do own and not that one, because I can never get those things to look symmetrical for the life of me, and then it kind of just ends up looking really bad in photos. And then at 2 o'clock, we take the car back up to where we had picked it up the previous day. We do the kind of like handover procedure. Mind you, this isn't with like a physical person. It's like you take photos of the car and you upload it, and you fill out some questions and you answer some questions and you write a few comments, and then you return the car, and that's that. We return the car at 2 o'clock and we make our way back to where the bus dropped us off. So we get on the bus and we get back to the port, and just as I wanted to, 3 o'clock we are on the tender going back onto the boat. It takes us about half an hour, and we go through security, we drop off our bags in our room, and did I just call it security? It's customs. It's technically customs, but it's a bunch of security guards. So we go through customs, we go back up to our room, we drop our stuff off, and then my best friend's boyfriend didn't actually disembark that day. And so go up to the pool deck, have a drink, have a little chat, and we kind of just wait for the rest of the cavalry to get back because they really pushed it. They were like the last tender back because I could never. And just like every other night at 5:30, we go downstairs for dinner. Now, Bobs and I were definitely a little bit pressed for time because I had booked us in for a 7 p.m. iFly. So with Royal Caribbean on port days, it is actually complimentary to do the North Star and iFly if those activities are available on the boat that you choose to board on. And so it was complimentary, but there is a fee if you don't show up because they are really, really popular. And I think when we booked it the night before, well, when I booked it the night before, it was like booked out within like 6 minutes of them actually opening the reservations. So we do iFly at 7 o'clock. So we kind of went a little bit easier on dinner because I didn't want to regurgitate my dinner in the middle of that iFly chamber. And so we did that and then went and had a little bit of extra food to kind of make up for eating half of our dinner. I will add though, in between dinner, well, in between iFly and our second dinner, we actually popped down to the Seaplex to see some of the other guys that we were traveling with because they were playing soccer down there. I think the Seaplex just had like this open like soccer thing and they just played with that. So we kind of went in to see what they were up to and then headed to Windjammer, which is the buffet, to grab some extra food. And then similar to the night before, we were just like burnt out. So 9:30 p.m. we called it a night. Day 7 was a little bit of an interesting day. So 8:30 in the morning, we go to the main dining room and we have breakfast like we have been for most mornings, and then at 9:30 a.m. we actually go down to play pool at the music hall. And this is the day that we're cruising past Willis Island, and we literally just cruise past. Like, you don't disembark, the boat doesn't stop at any point for you to see Willis Island. Like, you just have to catch it by chance because you're looking out a window basically. And so we passed it I think around 10 a.m. in the morning, and we were all kind of just like, it was really underwhelming. Also, it was really blurry. Like, we were just so far away from it that you couldn't really see it properly. But we did go past Willis Island at about 10 a.m. in the morning. So 12:15, we all regroup as a group for lunch at the main dining room, and we have yet another sit down 3-course meal because it's just a vibe to be able to just like sit down, not have to stress about finding a table. We get waited on, and it's really, really nice because the waiter who looks after us for dinner, we pretty much get to see him like 3 times a day when we do this because he also waits the breakfast and the lunch services. So we just see him breakfast, lunch and dinner, and it's just nice to have a familiar face. Following lunch, we do drinks at the Schooner Bar at 1:45, and then we actually do a little bit of shopping on the promenade at 2:45. So it honestly was not a really long shop. I think I bought a couple of things from Benefits because it was tax-free, and they were already cheaper than they are in Sydney even before the taxes, I think, because of the conversion. And then as well with Benefits, if you bought like 2 items, you got something for free. So I got a travel size mascara with everything else that I bought. So it was kind of definitely worth it. We didn't really buy anything else on that day. We did buy some more stuff on the boat at some point, but we just didn't buy it on that particular day. So it was a little bit of window shopping and a little bit of like actual shopping. Just like clockwork, 5 o'clock, and it's dinner time. I'm starting to like get confused whether we were the 5 or 5:30 seating, but it was 5 something. We were the first seating of the night, and we had dinner, and then 7 o'clock we went for drinks and then kind of made grazing boards at Windjammer and then took them out of Windjammer and kind of just snacked on these grazing boards and drinks. And then 8 o'clock we went to karaoke. I think this was the 3rd round. It was the final round of karaoke. Honestly, yeah, because I don't think we went to the open karaoke mic. Maybe we did. honestly, karaoke happened so many times, and there were like different ones. It was like the karaoke competition, and then there was like just fun open adult mic karaoke. So we watched a karaoke of some sort, can't remember which one, but karaoke it was. And then we went back for Guess the Price of the Diamond at 9:30 p.m. and then this show 10:30. If you are ever on a Royal Caribbean cruise, you have to watch it. It's called Love and Marriage, and they literally pick 3 couples out of the audience to play this game. So this is not like scripted or anything. This is literally hand plucking couples out of the audience, and they've been married for like different lengths of time. Like I think for our one, it was like there was the younger couple were like on their honeymoon, and then there was a couple who was like married like 20 years or something, and then another one who was like 30 years. And you basically ask questions and you separate the like pairs, and then you have to see if they answer it like the same as each other. And it's the funniest thing to watch, because you can kind of tell who has been married longer. Literally, that's it. Once that show finished, it was like 11 o'clock, so we called it a night after that. Which brings us to another sea day. Honestly, I think Bub said this, I think 2 days after we got off the boat. He was like, I feel like I'm still rocking. And I was like, you and me, kid. You and me, kid. But we had another sea day, which promptly started with breakfast at the main dining room at 9 a.m. in the morning. We then went to the lightning fast auction at 11 o'clock. They do art auctions on the boat, and we went to our first ever art auction. Honestly, I felt like I was 40 going in there. I've been to auctions before, but just not for artworks. And it was very, very fun, very enjoyable, and a little bit like chaotic. I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard like auctioneers speaking when it comes to like really bad comparison, like cattle auctions. If you haven't, please Google it. It is the funniest thing. TikTok has them as well. It's just funny to listen to because most of the time you can't pick up what's being said at all. So we finish up with the lightning fast auction, and then we go and have lunch at the main dining room again for a 3-course sit down, because why not? And then for some ungodly reason, Bubs and I walked past the fish and chip shop at 1:30, not even like half an hour after lunch had finished, mind you, and we proceeded to have fish and chips and then take it back to our room so we could watch the tennis in bed, because we were on the boat at the time the Australian Open was being played, and somehow we got the channel for it, so we did watch that. We took a nap and then went to dinner at 5 p.m. Now at 7:30 we go and watch the production showtime, The Beautiful Dream, and it's amazing. It's basically a musical. It was awesome to watch. Kind of gave very I don't know, like steampunk vibes, but we did enjoy it. There was a lot of singing. It was honestly really beautiful to watch. Now 8:30, I've been wanting to go to this bistro like the entire cruise, and I finally got a reservation, and Bubs ended up feeling so sick, so full of food, so I took 2 of the girls with me instead, and I had prawn ceviche, and honestly that was the only thing I actually wanted from the bistro. So I think I had like 3 servings of prawn ceviche, and then we went to watch karaoke again at 9 o'clock. Karaoke finished, and then we stayed in the music hall to listen to some more music, and it's at that point that the 2 boys call it a night. They're like, yeah, we're going to bed, and suddenly it turned into girls' night and tequila. So we kind of just danced and ran the night through, and finally decided to call it a night at 1 a.m. in the morning. There were a lot of questions the next morning at breakfast. 8:45 a.m. on day 9, our last full day on the boat, we meet again at the main dining room for breakfast, and admittedly a few members of our group do not make it there courtesy of the events of the previous night or the early hours of the morning. So we finish up breakfast, and then we go to the art auction again at 10:30. And at that point, Bubs and I had decided that, you know what, if we saw something that we actually liked, we were going to bid on it. Like, we were going to go for it, and we were going to just see what happens, is quite literally how we took it. Just see how it plays out. And we didn't end up, like, we didn't buy something at that specific auction, but we did make an appointment to go down to the gallery later to see some pieces that we liked and that we didn't actually get a chance to see up close in the auction because you don't get close enough to the artworks. We're sitting in the back of the room. I'm blind as a bat as it is. We can't really see what's going on, so we book in a time to see them after dinner and get a closer look at the artwork. The art auction ends, and at 1 o'clock we go back to the main dining room for our last lunch on the boat. Following lunch, we have a little stroll around and then take another nap. I don't know why, we would just nap. I'm pretty sure we napped every single day when we had sea days, I guess because there wasn't really like that much to do either. Main dining room at 5 o'clock like every other night for the last time this cruise, and I think they danced that night. I think it was dancing. The last 3 nights we got like entertainment. So I think the first night, I can't remember what it was, but there was like dancing the first night, there was singing the second night, and then there was dancing the third night that they did it. And so that was the last night, and we had some dancing courtesy of our wait staff. Now 6:30 p.m. is that art appointment. That art appointment, I will say, went a lot longer than I thought it was going to. We were there, I think, for a solid hour. And you want to know why? Because we bought an artwork. Yeah, we bought an artwork. I really do like it. I think it's a really nice piece. We've just got to work out how to get it onto our wall. But the artwork is here. We bought it. We still love it. And I can't wait to actually have it hanging up. We're just worried about how secure it is going to be on our walls. So we're gonna see how that plays out. Following the purchase of our artwork, we go to Windjammer and we get some more food to eat, and then we have a stroll around the boat with a cocktail in hand because it's just a vibe. Like, when at sea, why not be drunk? 10 p.m. comes around, and speaking of drinking, we go duty-free shopping for alcohol, and Bubs ends up picking out like 2 bottles of Jameson, and that's it. That's all we bought out of duty-free, 2 bottles of Jameson and the makeup that I had bought from Benefits. We go back to Amber and Oak, which I mentioned in part 1 was pretty much a pub or a bar that we frequented in terms of where we were buying drinks from. We weren't necessarily always sitting down and drinking, but we definitely did prefer to go there and actually purchase the alcohol. So we go at 10:15, we grab a drink and we go back to our room, and we actually start packing. And we actually start packing for departure. Bubs lives out of his suitcase, I don't. So my packing process definitely took a lot longer because I had to like take everything off the rack, take everything off coat hangers, but we packed and we were ready for departure essentially. At 11:30, we pop downstairs really quickly to pick up some more pizza from Sorrento's before coming back upstairs and calling it a night. And that kind of really marks the end of the cruise for us. Now, on day 10, we didn't all get up at the same time. So Bubs and I actually got up really early. I think it was 7:15 we went down to breakfast. The main dining room was still open for breakfast, so we went down to the main dining room, had breakfast with our suitcases, mind you, and then pretty much just left from there. We ended up getting the bus back to the apartment because even though we took an Uber there, we just knew trying to get in an Uber at Circular Quay was going to be so hard, because when we were going there, we were very much prepared that if it was like completely jam-packed, we could pull over on the side somewhere and unload the suitcases. But trying to find your Uber in a sea of cars it's like, I don't think people understand how chaotic the terminal is when a boat comes in, because you've got the people getting off the boat, you've got the people picking up the people who are getting off the boat, and then you have the people who are about to get on the boat because they piggyback onto each other, and then you have the people who are dropping off the people who are going to get on the boat. So yes, it is just as confusing as that sounded. So we ended up opting to just get the bus. I think it was like, I want to say it was like 8 o'clock in the morning when we got off. So the buses were not busy, and we also got on at the first stop, Circular Quay. I just got a piece of hair. Circular Quay, as I was saying, is the first stop on the bus route that we get on, and so it just seemed like the most convenient thing, and we were getting dropped off across the road from where we needed to go to the apartment, and so that was just the logical next step. We did pretty much come back, and it was back into full swing life for us, and it really hasn't stopped since. So that pretty much sums up the entire cruise well, the second half of the cruise, because the first half is in the part 1 vlog. But that's pretty much everything that we did get up to, or at least that I noted down, because like I said, I don't have an eidetic memory. But if you do have any questions, comments or queries, please feel free to leave them down below. If not, I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are. Bye!